Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to What is Going Om, for new thought from the edge of Om. Each week on Om Times' flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandy Sedgbeer conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Om. Here is your host, Sandy Sedgbeer.
Hello. With new studies confirming that hospital workforces and the medical industry in general is in very deep disarray, it's critical to understand that the keys to safeguarding our future physical, emotional, and mental health and well-being lies, quite literally, in our own minds and hands. Dr. Bradley Nelson is a globally renowned expert in bioenergetic medicine and one of the world's foremost experts on natural methods of achieving wellness. The creator of the Body Code system, CEO of the holistic education platform, which is called Discover Healing, and author of the best-selling book, The Emotion Code. Dr. Bradley joins me now to discuss his latest book, The Body Code, Unlocking Your Body's Ability to Heal Itself, in which he reveals how you can identify imbalances in 6 key areas of your body that are the root causes of physical, mental, and emotional issues, and release the emotional baggage that harms our health and relationships. Dr. Bradley Nelson, welcome.
Thank you, Sandy. I really appreciate having me on. It's great to be here.
You've made it your life mission to help people understand that our bodies are composed of energy and that stuck emotions are at the core of most of our body's imbalances, and indeed behind 90% of all painful systems. That's quite a mission, and it all started with an experience you had at the age of 7. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, that was really the beginning of my journey, age 7. I was really sick with the measles, and I'd overheard my parents talking, and I knew the plan was that I was going into the hospital the next day, going into something called an oxygen tent. I didn't know what that was. The tent part sounded kind of interesting to my 7-year-old boy brain, but I knew that that was the plan. And so on this night, everyone else had gone to bed, and I'm lying on the couch. My parents made a bed for me on the couch in the living room so I could be near their bedroom, so they could keep an eye on me. And I remember lying there on the couch feeling really ill and just sick, and feverish and nauseated. And my parents came into the room. Everybody else had gone to bed. My folks came into the room, and my mother said to my father, she said, "Honey, will you kneel down with me, and will you say a prayer for our boy so he'll be able to get well?" And knowing my dad, it was probably the first time I'd ever heard him pray, out loud. He wasn't a preacher or anything like that. He was in construction and real estate. But they knelt down by the side of this couch, and my dad starts offering this prayer. And in the middle of this prayer, this change begins at the top of my head, and it goes through my body to the soles of my feet, and I was instantly made well. And you can't forget this kind of thing because it's so crazy and so impossible and so bizarre and so singular. I've talked to other people who have been healed of something like this instantaneously. And we all agree, you don't ever forget it. It's like it's seared into every particle of your being. And so I held my tongue till my dad was done praying. I didn't want to interrupt him. And when he was done, I said, I'm better. And they said, okay, that's fine. Go back to sleep. Tomorrow you're going in the oxygen tent. But the next day, sure enough, proved that I was completely well, totally healed. So that taught me two things. It taught me that there's a higher power that we can draw upon for help. And it also taught me that healing doesn't have to take a long time. It can happen instantaneously because I've experienced it. It happened to me. Well, so then about 7 years later, I ended up with kidney disease. And there was nothing that could be done for me medically, but it was quite serious, very serious, really. And my folks took me to see some alternative doctors, some holistic doctors who practiced out on the edge of town in a trailer house in the middle of a wheat field. And they started working on me, and my body started responding immediately to what they were doing. I could feel it in my body. I could feel the energy flowing back into me. And within a few weeks, the crippling pains that I would have were completely gone. And my folks took me back to the hospital and ran all the tests again. And as I recall, they ran the tests twice and proved that I was completely healed. So I decided at that point, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to become a doctor like these people that are practicing out on the edge of town. And if I needed to practice out on the edge of town in a trailer house in the middle of a wheat field, that to me at 13, that seemed to be the natural habitat of doctors that knew what they were doing. Right.
Did your parents, just accept this? And did they think that they had a very special son?
No, I mean, no. They, my parents loved me very much and were always very, very positive in all their interactions with me. But no, I was just a normal kid, in a normal family. There were, I had two brothers and two sisters, and but it was just. It was just an interesting thing. My mother was very open to alternatives. In fact, she was considered a health nut back when if you took vitamins, you were actually considered a little bit out of your mind.
Yes.
If those of us that are old enough, we remember those days, and it wasn't really that long ago, at least to us. And so, so she was the one that I think she had an enormous influence on my life. My father had a different kind of influence on me. He was very entrepreneurial and had his own business. He served in World War II in India. And when he got back from that, he decided he was never going to work for anybody else ever again. He was just going to be his own man. And so he did. And so, so I got involved in computers all of a sudden. I was going to school in 1980 in Hawaii. And I needed one more class to round out my schedule. So I took a class on computer programming, and that just completely took over my life. And I became a computer programmer. And I mean, I was an absolute nerd, geek, whatever you want to call it, and taught myself programming. And I created a business in the early 80s called the Computer Tutor, where I would go into people's businesses and I would program their computer systems. I'd look at their flow, and these would be companies that would have purchased a new IBM PC, for example, and there was no software in those days to run to make the computer really very useful. And so I would write the software customized for their business, and I loved doing that. I thought it was really fun. I got to meet a lot of interesting people. So so what happened was I decided I was going to stay in that, and I was actually going to get my MBA. My master's in business administration. And I was 6 months away from going into that program at Brigham Young University in Hawaii. And we went home to Montana, and where I'm from. And we were sitting around, my wife and I, we had a little girl at the time. We were sitting around with my folks, and my dad, totally out of the blue, said to me, "Are you sure that you don't want to go to chiropractic school? It seems like a great career, and you've always wanted to do that." And I said, "Nah, I'm going this other direction. I'm going to get my MBA and be really into computers and go to work for IBM or something." And he said, "Well, why don't you think about it one more time?" And those words were the most important words that I think anybody ever spoke to me, because I was susceptible, and I love my dad, and he was very wise. And so, so I said, "Well, all right, I will." And so I thought about it one more time. My wife and I made up a pro and con list, going into the healing arts on one side, getting the MBA, going to work for IBM or some big company on the other. And they were both long lists. both very compelling futures to me. And so I went from a point of having everything figured out to a point of not really knowing what to do anymore. And but having learned at a younger age that you can ask for help from a higher power, I got on my knees that night and I prayed about it, and I asked God to help me to know which way to go. And because I all of a sudden felt like I was in the middle of the fence, I could go either way. And so I was just asking for some kind of input, and guidance. So that night, I was awakened 3 different times. And each time that I would wake up, my mind would be full of all these happy, warm, fuzzy thoughts about how great it is to be able to help people naturally and help people to heal and serve people. And I would think, well, yeah, but that's true. But, the new IBM PC is a 4 megahertz processor, or something like that. And I'd go fall back asleep. That happened 3 times that night. So I still don't know what to do the next day. So the next night I get on my knees again and I pray and ask the same question. And on the second night, I had this experience where I was awakened again 3 times, but each time that I was awakened, the thoughts were exponentially more powerful than the time before, such that on the second night, on the third time that I was awakened in the middle of the night, the thoughts of service to mankind and humanity and the whole entire world were just absolutely overwhelming. And at that moment that I'm feeling that, I heard a voice that spoke to me as clearly as I'm speaking to you right now. And it said, "This is a sacred calling." And I thought, okay, I get it. And so I went to chiropractic school. And I tried to be really open when I was in school, because the people that had saved my life from kidney disease, I can remember lying on my back on their treatment table and looking up at them and saying, "When I grow up, I want to do what you're doing." And they were very discouraging. They said to me, "No, you don't. No, you don't. If you go to chiropractic school or some school of natural healing, they'll fill your head so full of fixed ideas, you won't be able to even think when you get out. You'll be like a zombie." And I really took that to heart. So when I went to chiropractic school, I was very open, very, very open to anything that might work. And I stayed that way. When I got out of practice, I was just looking for anything that I could find that would help my patients. And the things that worked, I kept, and the things that didn't work, I didn't keep. But one of the things that was pivotal that happened to me was when I was in chiropractic school one day, my neurology instructor was at the blackboard explaining the brain and talking about the brain and talking about how the brain was a computer. And at the time, I was putting myself through school partly by programming the admissions office computers that they were using at the school that I was going to. And so my classmates often claimed that I changed my grades, but I actually never did. But I remember sitting there thinking about the brain as a computer, and I started pondering about how the information must be in the brain about what's really wrong with people. And I started thinking, wow, the brain is a computer. I wonder if we'll ever have the technology to be able to access the information that's in the brain computer, because we could use that information to find out what's really wrong with people. What a game changer that would be. What an incredible tool that would be to help our patients get well. And I thought, well, boy, that would be super advanced technology. Maybe in 100 years, but probably more like 200 or 300 years, maybe we'll have that technology. And so I just put the idea out of my mind. Little did I know that I would spend the rest of my professional career figuring out exactly how to do just that, to communicate with that that computer.
When did you make the connection between emotions and, the physical expression of something being amiss?
Well, it was a gradual process. First of all, in the beginning, I had people coming to see me with all kinds of physical pain in joints, pain in different parts of the body, pain in the neck, pain in the back, elbow pain, knee pain, and so on. And so I was working a lot with the joints of the body. Well, the muscles connect to the joints, And so I began to figure out that the muscles were imbalanced, that were creating these symptoms that people were suffering from. And then as I delved further into this, there was research that had been done by a guy, and I can't remember his name now, but up in the Pacific Northwest somewhere. He's been dead for a long, long time now. But he made connections between the muscles and the organs and the glands of the body. And so I began to explore that and to experiment with that. And what I found was that if somebody, for example, had pain in their right knee, that would always seem to be related to an imbalance of the gallbladder. And if I took a magnet and I swiped a few times down a person's back with an intention to turn their gallbladder back on again, to reset that circuit, all of a sudden that muscle would also turn on and their knee pain would be usually gone immediately, instantly, right? And so, and I figured out that this same kind of interaction was occurring with all the organs and some of the glands as well. I found, for example, that if the liver was imbalanced, there was a muscle in the back, right in between the shoulder blades, that would imbalance. And so that would tend to cause pain in that area of the body. And these connections between the muscles and the organs and the glands, this understanding goes back thousands of years, really, to 5-element theory and acupuncture and so on. But I was kind of rediscovering all of this stuff for myself. But there's really nothing new under the sun. And so, so that was tremendously powerful, because I found that if a patient had pain in a certain area, there would usually be an imbalance in an organ or a gland that was contributing to a muscle imbalance in that area. And if I fix the organ or the gland by swiping a few times with a magnet down their back, I could turn that organ or gland on, and that would turn on the muscle. And so then the pain would immediately be gone or diminished. But then what I found was that sometimes I would turn an organ or a gland back on, and it wouldn't stay. It would be like if you've ever had a breaker or a fuse at your house and you turn, I have a fuse like that right now at our pool, where I'll turn the fuse on and the pump will start and then the fuse will blow.
Yeah.
And I'll have to keep resetting it. And I found that same exact thing going on with human beings, that I'd reset an organ or a gland and then the fuse would blow. And I was trying to figure out what was causing that. And then, when the student's ready, the teacher appears, and I began to think back on some of the things that I had learned earlier about emotions. And I began to play with that a little bit. And there were some things that came to light for me about that during those times, things that had been known about in ancient times about emotions. And so I began to investigate this connection between the emotions and the organs and the glands. And what I found was that in ancient times, they believed, at least in the Chinese medicine and so on, they believed that emotions were produced by the organs and the glands in the body. And they, at some point hundreds of years ago, there was somebody who came along and said, no, it's the heart that produces all the emotions. But I believe that anciently they were right, that the organs and the glands produce different emotions. And so I was able to come up with a chart that looks like this. And on the left column, you see we've got various different organs and things. And then we have the emotions listed in 2 columns here. There's 60 emotions here. And what I began to find was that if I had an organ or a gland in someone's body that wouldn't stay turned on, if I asked the subconscious mind, the computer, using muscle testing or leg length testing or some method of testing, if there was something emotional that was short-circuiting this organ, the answer was always yes. And so I could find, by using this chart, I was able to find the emotion and then release that energy. And then I found that I could turn organs and glands on and keep them on. And so that was a huge, huge breakthrough. Well, as time went on, I began to learn more and more about emotions. And essentially what happens to us is, if you think about it, we're all beings of pure energy. The body itself is energy. I mean, if you take your hand and you magnify it under a big enough microscope and you zoom in past the level of the cells and past the organelles that make up the cells and past the molecules and the level of the DNA down to a single individual atom, if you look inside the atom, you see there's really nothing in there. The next atom's a long distance away. And the atom consists of just energies that are zipping around at the speed of light and vibrating at different rates. And so that's really what we are. Well, when you're feeling an intense emotion on an atomic level or on a quantum level, what's happening is you're feeling a certain frequency, a certain vibration. Every emotion has its own frequency. Pure joy is way up there on the high end, and absolute total shame is on the low end, right? And then in between, we've got all these other emotions that we experience. Well, what I found was that all my patients, no matter how young or old they were, no matter what they were suffering from, whether it was a physical problem or a mental problem or an emotional issue, they all had something in common, and that was their emotional baggage. And so from the beginning of just finding out that I could find emotions that were short-circuiting organs and glands, it led to this understanding that emotional baggage, or in other words, the energy of these emotional experiences that had become trapped and had been left behind after the bully moved away or the divorce was finalized or whatever event it was, those energies were still in the body. And I found that by releasing those, all kinds of things would get better. And I found that emotional baggage was the single biggest underlying cause, really, of all of these things. I mean, everything from asthma to infertility to digestive disorders, always an emotional component. Every disease process that I saw and that I have seen for 35 years, every disease process has an emotional component. There's emotional baggage, if you will, behind every disease we suffer from, not to mention things like depression and anxiety and phobias and panic attacks and PTSD and eating disorders and self-sabotage of all kinds. All of these things are caused wholly or in part by trapped emotions. And that's why I left practice in 2004 and I wrote this book, The Emotion Code. This knowledge had to go out to the world. It wasn't just for me. It had to go out to the whole world. And so that's what trapped emotions, that's what I call them, trapped emotions, these energies. That's what I call them. Literally, it's our emotional baggage. And the beauty of it is with the emotion code, it's easy to find emotional energies that are trapped in your body, and it's easy to get rid of them. It's a very fast process, and yet it can be life-changing in what it can do for you. And that's what's really driving this the success of this all over the world. In fact, you can kind of see me on the wall behind me. These are all different translations of the emotion code in different languages. My publisher sends me these. I never know what to do with them, so I started putting them on the wall.
It's interesting that it's not just the emotion from an event that we found unpleasant or painful. It's the thought that we have about the emotion as well. Because, I mean, as a child, we will often interpret things that are going on in our environment according to whatever. And then we have an emotion about that stays trapped in the body, but we never recognize it because that thought is long gone.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the emotional baggage that we have is from things we don't even remember, events we don't even recall.
Yes.
You can have emotional energy trapped in the body from an emotion that your mother felt when you were in the womb. If she went through something intense, you can inherit emotional energy at the moment of conception from mom or dad. And they might have gotten it at conception from their mom or dad. And these can go back for generations.
Yes.
And so we see things like this where, for example, a young woman is having a hard time finding love and just can't seem to figure it out and is alone. And then finally we figure out when she's 40 years old, she's carrying emotional baggage from a grandmother who was jilted at the altar. So she has that energy in her. That's part of her now. So by releasing that energy, she's able to finally find love. I mean, money too, Your eighth grade grandfather was thrown into the poorhouse, and you might be carrying that energy from him, all that grief and shame about money. And now you have that.
And you don't know why.
And you don't know, you don't know why you have such a hard time with money. It's
That's a bit
fascinating.
harder for people to accept, isn't it? That, I can accept that my emotions, are affecting my body, but that somebody that I never even knew might also, have something to do with it. That's a hard one for people to find.
Yeah, well, science is bearing this out, though. Scientific studies and research have been done that show that this absolutely happens. It's indisputable. The first study that was really done on this that started opening up this whole ball of wax was a study done, I believe it was in Atlanta, where they took mice, and they would, at the same time that they would submit these or expose these mice to an electrical shock, they would blow the scent of cherry blossom into their cage. And so pretty soon, these mice would, if they smelled cherry blossom, they would have a fear reaction because they knew they were going to get shocked. Well, what they found was the offspring of those mice would have a fear reaction, even though the offspring had never smelled cherry blossom and had never been shocked. The moment, no matter how old they were, the moment they smelled cherry blossom, they would immediately have a fear reaction to that. Well, to take it further, they took sperm from these mice and took the sperm across the other side of this university campus, and they impregnated female mice that had never been shocked, that had never smelled cherry blossom in their lives. Those offspring were sensitized to cherry blossom too. And so the scientists, they're trying to figure out how this works in terms of DNA. And they're looking at the DNA under the microscope and just puzzling, how is this even possible? But of course, it's all because of quantum physics. It's energy. It's quantum energy. It's emotional baggage, literally, that the mice are passing down. And we know that this works unbelievably well with animals. In fact, we've certified almost 12,000 people now in over 80 countries around the world who want to do the emotion code for a living, and or just really master it. And they have to work with a minimum number of animals, because we know that when animals have behavioral issues, or if they have some kind of a physical issue like lameness in a horse, for example, it's almost always emotional baggage that's doing it. And by releasing those emotions, you can change the behavior, you can change how that animal is feeling. And there's no placebo effect with animals. They just all of a sudden are walking normally, or they're not, your cat's not peeing in your shoes anymore, or whatever it might be.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because this research is showing us that the trauma that everybody's experienced over the last few years with the pandemic.
Yes.
What is that trauma going to be doing to our grandchildren? We have to find ways to mitigate that.
Well, exactly. There was a great book that was written. I can't think of the name at the moment, but it was about the grandchildren of Holocaust survivors.
Yeah.
And they looked at those people and they found that all of a sudden, here's a totally different group of people. There are changes in the DNA. They're much more susceptible to stress and so on, and diseases. Apparently, the only difference is that their grandparents went through the Holocaust. And so we know that this is a very, very real thing. The beautiful thing about the emotion code is that it's an easy process to learn, to communicate with that subconscious mind, the computer inside, find those energies and release those.
Yeah.
But it goes even beyond that, because you see, when I was in practice, Sandy, I always had a computer there with me, and I was always trying to catalog and organize the things that I was finding on my patients. And so gradually, over many years, I learned that there are really 6 different kinds of imbalances that cause all of our symptoms. And that's really what the body code is about.
That's your new book.
That's the new book, right? Exactly. And so I'll show you a picture here. There are 6 different kinds of imbalances that cause all of our physical and mental and emotional symptoms. And there are things like energies, which of course are trapped emotions. There are things like imbalances of the circuitry and the systems of the body, disconnections between the spirit and the physical body, and so on. There are toxins. We're exposed to lots of toxins in the world that we live in. We can have pathogens living in the body. If you got pathogens living in your body, you got to get rid of them, or you're not going to be as healthy as you could be. Any tissue can misalign. And then there are nutritional and lifestyle issues. And so all of these things are detailed here in the Body Code book. And essentially what I found was that I could communicate with this computer that was within my patients. In fact, I remember one day a woman came in to see me who was dealing with a lot of difficult things. And I said to her at one point, I'm basically clueless about what's wrong with you. And her eyes got really big and she looked really shocked. And I said, but wait, I said, it's okay. I said, within you, you have this computer, the subconscious mind, we call it. And it knows exactly, with a perfect understanding, what the list of things is that needs to be done for you to be able to get well. And I said, I know how to talk to that computer, so don't worry, you can get well. And get well, she did, and many others. During the last 10 years that I was in practice, most of the people that I saw had been told there was really no hope for them at all in Western medicine. They were people that had been told they'd never get well, and yet they did get well.
Yeah.
Yes. And see, what I've come to understand that's so fascinating, Sandy, is that this computer that is within us, it's unlike any other computer that we have ever been exposed to. If I think about, for example, my phone, here's my phone, right? And it has a screen where I can see things and I can use my finger to touch things, right? It's a touch screen interface. But it's a computer, isn't it? I mean, the phone's a powerful computer. I'm sitting at my laptop. What do I have? I've got a screen where I can see things, and I've got a keyboard where I can put in information and so on. So it's a screen/keyboard interface, right? Well, this computer that is within each of us is a binary computer. It's almost like a computer from an alien world that we're exposed to, and we don't have any idea how to make it work because there's no keyboard, there's no screen. How do we get information? How does that internal computer display information? How does it get messages to us? It gets messages to us through the symptoms that we experience, the pain that we feel, the depression, the anxiety, the infertility, the asthma, the panic attacks, all of those things and more, the diseases we're diagnosed with. All of those things, our inability to find love or make money, those are all symptoms that are being displayed in our life by this almost alien computer, really, that is within us. Alien in the sense that we're just not used to how it communicates. But it's been communicating to us all along through all of these symptoms, right?
Constantly.
And so
I'm going to have to hold you there.
Okay.
This is a really important point. And I also want to take that one step further and talk about the beliefs as well, because we have to bring that into it. But we need to take a break now, so we'll be back in a few moments. You're listening to What is Going On. I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, and my guest today is globally renowned expert in bioenergetic medicine and one of the world's foremost experts on natural methods of achieving wellness, Dr. Bradley Nelson. And we're talking about his latest book, The Body Code, Unlocking Your Body's Ability to Heal Itself. We'll be back with more from Bradley Nelson after the break.
Om Times TV. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times' flagship radio show, What is Going On? And as an author, editor, and 13 times book judge who's read thousands of books and interviewed hundreds of authors, I'm constantly asked what's really worth reading and what's not. So I created the No BS Spiritual Book Club to help you save time and money by picking the brains of discerning names who have walked this path before you. There's no catch, no fees, and no BS. Just an ever-growing library of 10 best spiritual book lists from some of your favourite authors and teachers, plus free book excerpts, audios and video interviews with people like Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., David G., Lee Harris, Mark Nepo and more. From well-known classics to hidden gems you've never heard of, it's the only no BS guide to the best spiritual books to enlighten your journey of self-discovery. So why not join the club? Get inspired and save money at the nobsspiritualbookclub.com.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back. Dr. Bradley Nelson. The thing that fascinates me most about your work and your books is it's not just that you are helping people find ways to heal themselves, but you're also helping people begin to understand that they have so much more inside them than they ever imagined. And if they can heal an emotion or a pain, what else are they capable of? And that's the real thing that we need to be looking at today.
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's funny because we're born into this world, I believe, from a place of absolute infinite glory. And we come into this world and the vibration level is just incredibly low. And immediately we start being lied to about what we're capable of. And so mankind as a whole is kind of sleepwalking through their lives, having no idea what they are capable of, and that the body is this self-healing organism. And there are all of these vested interests where lots and lots of money is at stake that are continually propagandizing people literally all over the world about what's healthy and what's good for them and what isn't, creating all of this conventional wisdom that most of the time is not even true. And it's an amazing time. However, the good news is that the consciousness level of the world is expanding like a balloon every day. It's getting a little bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger. And Sandy, I don't think it's ever going to go back. I think that we're on a one-way track to an awakening unlike anything that the earth has ever seen before. And so, obviously, it's a painful thing. I mean, labor is a painful thing. The earth is in labor, as I see it, trying to bring forth this new world. But it's going to be a future so bright, we're all going to need sunglasses because I believe that there's a future that's around the corner for us. There is an effectual struggle that is still going to have to be made, and it's I'm sure it's going to be difficult. But as we get through that, just like getting through labor, on the other side, there's a whole nother world that is awaiting us, and it's going to be amazing. And I believe that these healing tools, the emotion code and the body code, are the healing tools of this next millennium that is coming. Because as part of the expansion of that consciousness, what comes along with that is this understanding of what we're capable of, that our bodies are self-healing,
Yes.
that the secret to health and longevity is finding the imbalances that are going on within us and nipping those in the bud so that our bodies can function at their utmost. And luckily Western medicine is around, and it will probably be around for a long time, because sometimes we need surgery and sometimes we need a drug. But the vast majority of the time, we don't need a drug or surgery. So what can we do? Well, we can work on ourselves. I mean, we have wives who have healed their husbands, for example, of terrible PTSD coming back from the military, people who were very non-functional. We have mothers healing their kids of autism, which you would think is not healable, but it's happened in our own family. We have wives healing their husbands' low back pain, husbands healing their wives' depression, parents healing their children of their anxiety and all kinds of issues. And so that's the beauty of this.
So many of our children today are suffering from anxiety and depression, and we know there's an epidemic of mental health. To be able, instead of giving people drugs, to be able to take them to a practitioner who can deal with some of those thoughts, some of those emotions that are creating those blockages for them. That's a game changer.
Well, yes, it absolutely is. And in fact, we just introduced our third level of certification. It's called the Belief Code. And the Belief Code is a method of uncovering the negative belief systems that exist in the subconscious mind. And so every belief that makes up a system, you can think of a negative belief system as being a collection of beliefs that you might think of as being like a tree, where you might have the roots of that belief that started years ago that maybe like the root of the tree. And then the trunk of the tree and the branches might be limiting beliefs and negative beliefs. But we now are able to identify those and essentially delete those from the subconscious mind. And we can't change conscious beliefs, but we can change subconscious beliefs. And the results are absolutely amazing with this work. We have 80 people that we certified just this last weekend at our very, very first certification event in Las Vegas. But this is going to be our third level. It's our third level of certification. So when we certify when we certify people, anybody can certify in the emotion code or body code or belief code. There's no prerequisites. Anybody can learn this. And anyone can learn the emotion code and the body code, and they can do this themselves. And that's why these books are published, because we have people all over the world doing this. But then some people decide they want to really master this, or maybe do this for a living, and anyone can do that. So we have those three levels.
Tell us how, once you've identified, a belief, an emotion, or whatever it is, how do you then remove that?
Well, what I found was that when going back to the emotion code, the way that we do that is when you identify, and by the way, you have to have a way to communicate with the subconscious mind. And so we teach you a number of different ways of doing that. Most of them involve some kind of muscle testing. You can learn how to muscle test yourself. You can learn how to muscle test other people. And you can learn how to do it at a distance. In fact, all of that is taught in both of these books. But when we identify a belief system, the way that it works is in the belief code, we have 3,000 different beliefs that we've accumulated over many, many years from all the work that we've done. We've collected all of those. And those beliefs exist within this software app. The app is called the Body Code System that people can download. It's a subscription app. And when you're certified or you're in the certification program for belief code, then that becomes available to you. Anyway, what happens is, do you want me to, I can share my screen if you'd like. I don't know if that works or if
I don't know if that works, but give it a go.
Well, all right, let's see here. Hold on just one second then. And let's see. Here we go. All right, let me see if we can do this. Share screen. Here we go. Window. Let's see. I think I need to move this to a different window here on my computer really quick, and then I think I can do this. Anyway, so the subconscious mind is able to figure out what these things are. So here we go. I think I can share my screen now, and I think that your viewers will like to see this. Okay, here we go. All right, so can you see my screen okay?
No.
Not yet, huh? Okay, let's try that again.
Yes,
There
we
we
can
go.
see.
How about now?
Yes.
All right. So this is the body code system running on my laptop, and so here we have the 6 major imbalances, categories that cause all of our trouble, and toxins and energies and misalignments and things. But up here we have the belief code. So what we have found is that there are 7 different categories of beliefs, and they correspond to the 7 chakras in the body. Okay. So we have beliefs about the divine, about love and survival, and so on. So when we're trying to identify a belief, because the subconscious mind is connected into the database of universal intelligence, it knows exactly what's in this system, and it knows all of these thousands of beliefs that are in here. And so let's say that I'm working on you and you have some kind of a negative belief system. We would start with the leaves of the tree of the belief system. We would ask the subconscious mind if there is a belief system. Then we would start to identify the negative beliefs. And maybe there's a negative belief about love. And so maybe it's about partner. So we would click there. We go into the negative statements. And then here we have these negative statements. And so then we would ask, well, all right, we're tracking down a specific belief. And we would ask, is this statement in one of the odd rows here or an even row? And we would say, well, let's say it's in an even row. Maybe it's in row 4 or section 4. So now what we have here, or let's say it's in section 2. So what we have here now is we've got 11 different beliefs. And so so let's say that it's number 5. We would identify that through muscle testing. So then we would write that one down. That's a negative program. And in this same way, we would identify a limiting belief. And you never know where these things are going to be. Let's say that this one is in this area right here. Let's say that I'm a rebel against all authority. Okay, maybe that's one. That's a belief. So we can identify all of these beliefs. Again, there are about 3,000 beliefs in here. We can identify all of the beliefs that are making up a system. Then what we do at that point is, once we've identified a complete negative belief system, which might include anywhere from 1 to 4 negative programs, or maybe 2 or 3 limiting beliefs, or there might be a faulty core belief. There usually is sometimes even more than one. There might even be what we call a faulty core identity, which is something that's formed before age 7, that is like the soil that the tree is growing in. When we identify all of those, then we go to the body code. And what we do then is we ask if there is any imbalance in the body code that is associated with this negative belief system. And we might find something like maybe there's an allergy to a certain idea, or maybe there is a particular trapped emotion, maybe that was inherited or absorbed or something. And we'll clear those out. And once we clear those out, then we can come back to the belief system, and then we start releasing those beliefs and cutting the tree down and eliminating those. We start at the top and go all the way down to the bottom and release the whole thing. Then what we do is we ask if the subconscious mind needs any kind of a positive belief to be put in. And sometimes it does. And so, for example, we have thousands of positive statements as well. And so maybe it's I am safe. And so we'll put that into the subconscious mind. We release these by swiping over the governing meridian. And we also put new ones in the same way. And so that's essentially how the belief code works. But it's astonishing how powerful this can be, and the changes that it can make to people can. I've seen people completely change overnight, 180 degrees in how they were behaving before. I've seen it, and it's really wild. But we're super excited about this. This is really the next level for us. So it's emotion code.
That also we have what we think are positive beliefs. You know, I heard myself once say something to someone along the lines of, well, I'm a survivor. And then it suddenly hit me. If I believe that, then I've got to be constantly creating things in my life to survive.
Right.
So we need to think about some of those beliefs as well.
Yeah, that would mean you're in survival mode all the time, like you just walked away from the plane crash, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You say that only subconscious beliefs that are incongruent with conscious beliefs can be changed energetically. Explain that to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, if you believe that the sky is blue most of the time, that's not a belief that can be changed. You can only change beliefs in the subconscious mind that are incongruent. So the whole idea there, really, if you think about it, is that if you think of the conscious mind, if this hand of mine represents the conscious mind and this hand represents the subconscious mind, to really create the life that you want, you've got to get those two on board with each other. You've got to get them into alignment. And so if consciously you have a desire to go a certain direction, or you have a belief that you're proceeding upwards in your path, but meanwhile the subconscious mind is diametrically opposed to that belief, it's not going to work out. For example, if you have a conscious goal to be wealthy, which is fine, but your subconscious mind is not okay with that because it doesn't believe you deserve wealth, and the subconscious mind has made conclusions. The subconscious mind is kind of like a black box that it doesn't really make judgments about anything. It just makes conclusions. And so, for example, if you were told as a child, you'll never amount to anything, pretty soon the subconscious mind decides, okay, well, we're never going to amount to anything. So if you got that in the subconscious, then that's going to be fighting against all of your efforts to amount to anything later. And you may consciously, with all of your heart, want to find love or make more money or be successful or contribute to the world. But if your subconscious mind is opposed to that, it is the vast, vast bulk of your intelligence. And so ultimately, that's the direction you're going to go. It's going to drag you along with it. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing. But when we work with somebody using the belief code and we get rid of a faulty core belief, we liken it to actually installing a new operating system in a computer, where we're not just making a tweak, we're actually putting in a whole new operating system, and it can radically change. And
Reprogramming.
And it can be extremely noticeable to other people. Wow, I can't believe so-and-so is so different. He's never been so happy. He's never been so talkative. What did you guys do? Things like that happen. It's really fun.
If people buy the books and want to do this on themselves, can they have access to the app?
Yeah, everyone can get access. Anybody can get access to the app, the Body Code System app right now. Absolutely. However, the belief code, you have to really be trained to know what you're doing with the belief code. And so it's a certification level. Anybody can buy the emotion code. All the information's in here, and you can use this all you want. And we highly recommend and urge that you do. If you want to get certified and get really good at it, then that's available for you, but you can use it all you want. The body code, same thing. Anybody can use the body code. Anybody can learn it. The information's all in the book, and they can buy they can get the subscription for the body code system, and they can use it all that they want. The belief code, however, is a little bit of a different animal because we're working on the deep subconscious, and so we require people to have. We only allow people who have been certified in emotion code and then in body code, which is level 2, to move on to that level of certification. We're going to be launching that certification level, by the way, on the 14th of November this year. So it's going to be available as an online certification people can do wherever they are in the world. That's how the emotion code and the body code are too. Those certification levels are done online.
They do the belief system certification without doing the previous ones,
No, because you have to be a master really at using using the body code and the emotion code. You've got to really know what you're doing.
You have a number of free resources on your website. Tell our viewers what they can access there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have a map of practitioners around the world. So if you're looking for somebody to work with you, this work is energy medicine. It's quantum physics put into practice. Energy medicine at its purest. Remember, Albert Einstein said the future medicine will be the medicine of frequencies, right? And he was absolutely right. And that's what this is. So you can find somebody on that global map at our website, discoverhealing.com. You can find somebody that can work with you, and they might be on the other side of the planet, and that's totally okay. It works just as well at a distance as it does live and in person. We have information about certification there, and we have videos you can watch. We have thousands of testimonials that you can read from people from all over the world. We also have events that you can look up there to see where we're going to be appearing next. And we tend to get around. I'll be doing events in Florida very soon here, the first weekend in November. Then I'll be speaking at the Flow Summit in Basel, Switzerland the following weekend. And then the next weekend in November, I will be in, where will I be? I'll be in Taipei in Taiwan. And then then we're putting together an event probably for, I think, about the 2nd of December in Tokyo. And then I'll be back home again finally for Christmas.
Good. Well, we're just about out of time now, but I want to thank you very much for joining us today and for your books. I mean, they are incredibly helpful to people. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Sandy, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the time.
You're welcome. So the body code, unlocking your body's ability to heal itself, and the updated version of the emotion code, how to release your trapped emotions for abundant health, love and happiness, published by St. Martin's Essentials. And for more information about Dr. Bradley Nelson's certification programs, visit discoverhealing.com. And if you want to know more about him personally, hop over to drbradleynelson.com and learn all about him. That's it for this week. I'm Sandy Sedgbeer. I'll be back at the same time next week with another edition of What is Going On. Till then, it's goodbye from me, and thank you again to Dr. Bradley Nelson.